Welcome to Flow 360. My name is Dheeraj Adhikari. I'm your host. Today we have Douglas Plummer. He's the managing director of Midtown Title. Welcome to Flow 360.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. As we get started, I want to let you know that I'm going to call you Doug.
Oh, great.
Okay. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, that's what I go by.
Yeah. So, Doug, first thing first, I want to know about your past. Where were you born?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was born in San Antonio.
San Antonio.
Yeah, I grew up, well, no, actually, that's not right. I was raised in San Antonio.
Gotcha.
I was born in Brookings, South Dakota when I was little,
Gotcha.
but I came here when I was 3.
Okay.
And was raised in San Antonio.
Gotcha.
Both of my parents were college professors, so my mom taught physics and my dad taught organic chemistry.
Okay.
And lived in San Antonio, went to high school there, and then I went to Rice University in Houston to go to college there.
Owls.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, the Owls,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. I guess in terms of your education, were you, as a young kid, were you always thinking about attending college?
Yeah.
You wanted to pursue higher education,
Yeah.
probably more so since your parents were both professors.
Yes. So, I mean, that's one of the things. My parents never said, if you go to college. They said, when you go to college, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So we didn't even think that there was anything else you could do. We just thought that's what everyone did. You just go to college. And so that was kind of what was on our trajectory all along. Grades were very important to my parents since they were both teachers. I would come home and I would get straight A's and I would get like a B+ in math, and my parents would be like, what happened in math? What, do you need to study more? I'd be like, I got straight A's and everything else. And they'd be like, but we're so worried about math, you need to study more.
Yeah.
So it was always focused on studying and grades and thinking ahead for college.
Gotcha. As for, like, you mentioned Dakota, South Dakota?
Yeah.
And then moving to San Antonio.
Yeah.
Did you guys went back and forth to visit family, or?
No, my parents were there because my dad was doing some postdoctoral teaching there. And so they were just there because of the program there. And then his best friend was a physical chemist, and his best friend got a job at Trinity University in San Antonio.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then a year or two later, he called my dad and said, there's an organic chemistry position available. So my dad tried out for it and got the job. And so his best friend and his wife were double dating with my parents when they were in graduate school together, all in graduate school at the same time. So they just grew up, they had kids together, everything. So my parents had my older brother, and they had a son, and then my parents had me, and then they had a son, and then my parents had my sister, and then they had a girl, and then my parents had a little boy, and they said, we give up, you win.
So it was kind of like a competition.
Yeah. But they're like cousins to me.
Gotcha.
We spent so much time together.
Yeah. Okay. How expensive was college at that time?
It was very cheap.
Really?
Yeah, it was very cheap. I think it was probably $2,000 a semester.
That's not bad.
No. And
to go to Rice?
Well, Rice University was originally a free school.
Okay.
So William Marsh Rice was a famous cotton trader who made a ton of money trading cotton. He was quite brilliant in the market. Problematic because he owned slaves. So there's that whole issue. But he never married. He never had children.
Okay.
But he had all this money. He had millions, back in the early 1800s, which was, that's like billionaire now.
Yeah.
And he was almost illiterate. Like, he was not educated at all. And he wanted to endow a technical university so that other children could get educated in a way that he never got a chance to do. And so he created this will and leaving all this money to create the Rice Technical Institute. Well, what happened is that suddenly, out of the blue, he dies, and a new will pops up, leaving all his money to his butler. And it seems kind of fishy. So his best friend was James Baker, who was the original James Baker. He lived in New York City, and he thought it was fishy. So he hired the Pinkerton Detective Agency. They came down by train. They started investigating. They found out that the butler and this attorney had murdered William Marsh Rice, chloroformed him in his sleep in order to create a fake will. And of course, that will was tossed out. And the true will, creating Rice University, came into being, and it funded the school.
Gotcha. Did they teach you this in Rice?
Well, it's one of the things that you learn about because it's so fascinating, right? Yeah. There is a play about it called, I think it's called The Trust.
Gotcha.
And it's about what happened. Well, James Baker then had a son named James Baker II, and then there was James Baker III, who was the Secretary of State under the Bush administration. Okay. And they've now created a Rice foreign policy studies program. It's called the James Baker Institute. Yeah. So it's kind of fascinating, the connection between the founding of the school and what's going on right now.
Okay. As a kid, I'm not sure, what your goal was, what you wanted to get yourself involved into.
Yeah.
What did you see yourself as a child? Like, what you wanted to be?
There were two things I wanted to do. I wanted to be either a marine biologist and train dolphins. I really did. Okay. Seems so cool. Yeah. Now, mind you, I didn't know how to swim.
Okay. Okay. Even more fun.
But I wanted to be a marine biologist.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I thought I wanted to do was become a doctor.
Okay.
And so when I applied to Rice University, I actually applied in the biology department. And then got to Rice, and it was just so hard. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to have a good enough score to be able to go to medical school. Yeah. So I ended up getting a triple major in political science, economics, and Spanish.
Gotcha.
Because I'm still a little bit of an overachiever. But the reason it was super affordable for me is that after my first year, my dad went to the Trinity president and said, why don't we have an exchange program? I've heard that there's a lot of Rice University professor kids going to Trinity, and that's because a lot of universities do have these programs where they allow the kids to go for free. So he went back to the Rice University president, and Rice is like, yeah, we've got all these kids going to Trinity. And there were fewer kids going to Rice. So it was a better deal for Rice. Yeah. So Rice said yes. So starting my sophomore year, it became free for me to go. Okay. So right around my senior year, I was talking to this professor of accounting who I respected. His name was Dr. Zeff. And he said, what are you majoring in? I said, well, political science and Spanish. He's like, well, you'll never get a job with that. He's like, well, what else are you studying? I said, well, I've taken a lot of economics classes. He's like, you should stay for a 5th year and get an economics degree. It's going to make you much more employable. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do that. So then I went back to the dean of students at the time and said to him, look, I've only gotten 3 years of a scholarship. Can I stay for a 5th year and get a 4th year of a scholarship? And he's like, okay, yeah, that seems logical. Yeah. So they let me stay for the 5th year. And of course, my poor dad, who was a teacher at Trinity University, a professor, heard about it through the president of the university, who walked by and said, oh, I hear your son's staying for a 5th year. He's like, what? He didn't know. And the president of the university told him that I was staying for another year. Yeah. And that's how he found out that I was staying, which it did turn out to be a very good thing for me.
Yeah, that's good that, you had a little more options, I guess, after getting that 30 degrees.
A lot more options. Yeah. And I am so grateful to Rice University for allowing me to have that scholarship. So, I bought a life insurance policy, and when I die, all that money goes to Rice University.
Giving back, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, because they gave to me, and so I want to give something really nice
Yeah,
back to them.
yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. All right. And after you graduated, what was your first job? What did you get?
So it's interesting. I had some job offers. They were sort of traditional things. One was to work in the finance department of International Paper Company in Memphis. I tried really hard to get into some of the investment banking companies because that was the prestige job, and I got sort of in the sort of finalist to get to a job with First Boston, which was super prestigious. I didn't get the job. And then, so I got a job offer from International Paper Company, and then I got this weird job offer from a city in South Texas called Yoakum to be their director of economic development. And I went down there and interviewed. They sent me a job offer. And when I met with the city manager, and I said, well, tell me what the director of economic development does. And he's like, well, I'm not exactly sure. And I said, I'll take that job because I think I can be successful at that.
Not knowing what to do.
Exactly. So I took that job, and I had that job for 3 years. And during that time, we won the Governor's Community Achievement Award for some of the things that we were doing in the town. We got named a Main Street City, which is a combined historic preservation plus economic development program run out of the Texas Historical Society, where they really try and keep the downtowns historically preserved, but really promote them for business. And the other thing that I did that I'm super proud of is while I was there, the local radio station would say, okay, well, it's Christmas time, so we've taken the books off the shelf and put the Christmas books on. The library was so tiny that they didn't have room for all of the books. And I was a super nerdy kid who liked to read, and that seemed so sad to me. And so I got together with the Friends of Yoakum Library, and I started doing grant writing. I took some courses in grant writing while I was there, and ended up getting a $125,000 grant from the Meadows Foundation to renovate this old power plant that was 2 stories, open inside, had these clerestory windows. It was a beautiful building, and the city was using it to hold junk. And so I did this grant saying, hey, it's historic preservation, it's educational, it's going to be a really good thing. And the Meadows Foundation loved the idea and ended up funding it. And then we got a local family that had a lot of money, the Wellhausen family, to donate a matching amount. And they were able to use that to create that library. So if you go down to Yoakum, you'll see this really beautiful library that I helped create. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. As far as Midtown firm, did you guys? So you mentioned 2006. Is that when you all started? So how did you come up with the idea?
Well, I think I had told you I'd worked as a strategy consultant for a long time, for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then I worked for the Lower Colorado River Authority, which is an electric utility that's here in town in Austin. And I worked for their power division for a guy named Dudley Pyland, who was an engineer, super smart guy, really, really smart guy. Have tremendous respect for him. And I ended up doing operations consulting for them, and it was a really fun job, and I did that for about 3 years. And these attorneys up in Dallas had me do some consulting for them up there, and they said, hey, we want to open an Austin office, and we want to make you a partner. And I said, well, that sounds interesting. And so I quit my nice, safe, quasi-governmental job, and then started this office in 2006. So in 2006, everything was super busy. In 2007, it was really busy. And then in 2008, we had the great real estate collapse that was devastating in 2008 and 2009. And so that was a very tough year. Obviously, we made virtually no money. I don't know if you've ever looked at your Social Security statements, but you can look and see what you earned each year. And if you look in 2008 on my earnings thing, it said that I made $22,000. which is kind of funny because I had a Harvard Business School degree and I made $22,000 in 2009. But we came out of it and we just kept marketing and marketing and we kept growing and growing. And now we have 12 employees and we do a lot of transactions here.
That's good.
Yeah.
You guys stayed there and struggled now.
Yep.
Now it's paying off.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any advice for young kids, high schoolers who might be wanting to get into firm or a title or into maybe getting a degree, thinking of economics? What are some of your advices for young folks?
Well, interestingly enough, title insurance is a highly technical industry that requires a lot of skill and knowledge, and there's no training programs for it whatsoever. The only way to get training is to actually just go work for a company and start learning and getting better and better.
Yeah.
And so ironically, it's something that attracts a lot of people who just have a high school degree because they can start low at a kind of so-so wage, right? But keep learning, and as they learn more, they get paid more. So I have 2 employees working for me that have only a high school diploma, and they're making over $100,000.
Wow.
So this is a great industry to be in if you're willing to make it a career and stick with it and learn and learn and learn.
Yeah.
And that's the tough thing. It's like when you come in, you don't know anything, and so you're not worth very much to me. Yeah. So you might get paid $40,000, right? That's about the best that we can pay you because you don't know anything. You're not worth that much to us. But as you keep going, those people start earning more and more and more. And so unlike other programs where it's like, oh, I have to go train to be an accountant or I have to go train to be an attorney, this is very technical. There's a lot of knowledge you have to learn, but you don't have to go to school. You don't have to get yourself in debt. You just have to go start and be dedicated and work. Yeah. Now, the type of person that does well here is someone who can pay attention to details, shows up on time, is self-motivated. They don't have to be like having anyone nagging them, and wants to keep learning. And if you can have those attributes, you'll do really, really well. Okay. We hired this one woman who was, I think she was 19 when we hired her. Okay. And I was really nervous hiring someone that young. And she just really was dedicated. She took detailed notes. She would study her own notes. She learned super fast, and we just kept giving her pay raises and pay raises and pay raises, when she was 19, 20, 21. So she was starting to make really good money because she really wanted to learn.
She put in the work.
She put in the work, yeah. And then we've had people come here and they're just here for a job and they want to leave at 4:59 and 59 seconds and they don't want to do anything more and they don't want to learn anything more. And that's okay, but they're not going to keep progressing and earning more and more money. Yeah. Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
That's how life is,
Yes.
You gotta put in work to.
You have to put in the work.
So, Any other life advice? Not just job, but life advice for young folks.
I mean, it sounds weird because I've just talked about you can have a high school education, but I still believe in the value of a college education. I think it teaches you to think better, and I think it teaches you to write better, and I think it teaches you to communicate better. We hired this one woman who, clients would send me her emails and they say, what is she asking me to do? And I would look at it and say, I have no idea. I can't figure out what she's asking you to do. Yeah. So, having those skills, the ability to write well and to communicate well makes a big difference.
That's good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I thank you for your time.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you for sharing about your life and your experiences.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks so much. Yeah.